Welcome back to Dungeon Scrap. In case you don't know, we'll be going over Ettercaps today and giving a brief explanation about them. Ettercaps are humanoid spiders that usually live in the woods, and categorically they're considered a monstrosity, which, looking at it, that's understandable. And a quick word of warning: if you're arachnophobic or just don't like spiders in general, I would recommend clicking off now. So you have, I don't know, 5, 4, 3, 2. You get it. At this point, they're gone anyway. So anyway, let's go over a quick explanation of what the monster manual says about Ettercaps. The Ettercap tends to infest woodlands and be a very negative influence on them, slowly choking the life of them with a large expanse of webs and just bringing other spiders into it. Relies on stealth to hunt prey, even having a variation that uses a web garrote. And if you don't know what a garrote is, it's basically like a wire you would use to strangle someone. With this negative influence, the Ettercap have become natural enemies of Fae, which tend to be in tune with nature, and such, which they set traps for, like, for example, fairies and pixies. They have, like, little traps they set for them, and they sometimes try to trap dryads or other larger Fae if they can. Ettercaps drawing the ill will of Fae would seem like a bad thing, but, Ettercaps have a large amount of spiders that they usually have with them or, like, watch over, like a shepherd for. Ettercaps don't tend to catch the attention from more powerful Fae anyway, which, is why less powerful Fae will ask, humans or other more capable things to handle an Ettercap, which, I hope those weaker Fae fail, because I hate Fae. Number one Fae hater here. Ettercaps are considered good to me purely because Fae hate them. A quick detour on why I hate Fae, and they're evil, and I despise them. If you don't know anything about old Fae lore, like, this is kind of history and, a little bit of D&D in it. Point being, Fae are so evil. Like, it's not obvious, but it doesn't matter how people spin it. They love messing with, like, humans, anyone, really. It's not even just, like, messing with them if they mess with, like, nature. They'll just do it. They, like, steal people's names and, like, older folklore and stuff, or their faces even. And egos on stronger Fae. Like, they have massive egos, which applies to most powerful beings and such, but still, it's like they try to cover up their history of just being awful, but I'm not falling for it. So to conclude, Ettercaps are vastly superior to Fae because I hate them, and I'm very biased, but I'll try to give the Ettercaps opponents a fighting chance, as long as they aren't Fae. Okay, well, the Ettercap can have a few Fae as like a treat. Most Ettercaps rely on stealth, so obviously running combat with them won't be very direct. With any parties and, around the Ettercap's strength, it would be pretty fatal to get caught in direct confrontation. And this is if they don't have, like, a giant spiders backing them, which they tend to have, like, some. Wherever they set up, like, giant spiders seem to just appear, which is weird, but, if you end up using an Ettercap, it would be, like, in the forest, since that tends to be where they show up. I don't know why, like, giant spiders usually live in caves, so you'd assume an Ettercap would be in the same place. Anyway, point being, they can just about be anywhere that a giant spider would be anyway. That's more if the Ettercap isn't in charge of them, I guess, though. Yeah, they would be, like, not top dog, in which case they would want to go to the forest where they normally live. I would say the easiest way to cause an Ettercap encounter if you're a DM is to just have the party require traveling through a region that's already infested with one. Preferably without an alternate route. That's only if you really want to force an encounter, though, to show these things off. For this video, I'll make 2 encounters, one with a regular variant and one with a garrote variant. The first will be a normal encounter with an Ettercap and have, like, a few giant spiders. The second will be a stealth encounter with a garrote variant. And for this encounter, it's going to be a little bit not necessarily canonical to how Ettercaps work, For the first encounter, we'll have some non-player groups sent to handle the Ettercap and a large spider infestation. Our next encounter will be an Ettercap who will be getting some revenge for this, not very realistic, honestly, for them to seek revenge and such, but they're only slightly less intelligent than a Yeti, which have, like, a whole language, so it's not too implausible. That encounter will be a bit more high risk for the Ettercap, but it's more interesting. Ettercaps are good at stealth anyway. They'd make a good rogue if they were playable, I guess. Something tells me the spider monstrosity wouldn't be the most popular player race, though, Now let's see what kind of poor souls this wicked Fae no doubt deceived into going after this perfectly innocent Ettercap. Let's see. Let's have our interlopers be a knight and some guards. And a disgusting evil Fae, specifically a pixie, who is definitely more here for moral support and won't actually do anything in terms of fighting. Pixies aren't very useful in combat anyway. I would add a full mage, but I assume we don't want any fireballs or other overly destructive spells. And what I assume, since it's covered in webbing, is a very flammable forest. Anyway, that's at least justification for one not being present. Let's say 5 guards specifically, so 5 guards and a knight. They have a chance to wipe out an Ettercap, from stats-wise. Now to the important part, how well set up is this Ettercap? If this was a late-stage infestation, this group wouldn't stand a chance, honestly. And for that reason, we're not going to have them set up too bad. We'll have, some giant spiders and webbing around, obviously, but they won't have the whole forest covered, which is a situation where you'd need to send, much more, which, even at this early stage, is not going to be very easy to navigate for an average group. Definitely an adventurer problem if it ever gets late stage, if you want the forest to not be decimated, that is. Webbing is quite flammable after all, so there's always that solution. For our infestation, the group will be battling against 1 Ettercap, obviously, normal version, 2 giant spiders, and 1 giant wolf spider, which is a less web-reliant version of the previous. Can't have too many of these spiders, because 2 spiders, 1 guard is about equal to... 2 guards is equal to a spider. I don't know why I had so much trouble getting that out. Anyway, I'm about to show you our little ambush site here. Unfortunately, the passive perception of these humanoids here is not very good, especially considering every spider and the Ettercap itself have a very large bonus to stealth. In that regard, the Ettercap is actually a weak link in terms of stealth. Even so, a roll of 16 got that handled. 16 after the bonus, I mean. For a quick rundown of this map and what it all means, the dark green is trees or heavy shrubbery. It's basically everywhere off the path, which is kind of a plain tan, if you will. It's like a dirt road, you can imagine. And the gray is webbing, while the thinner lines of webbing represent walls of web, basically. Now, while I'd like to run how the Ettercap works a little differently, I'm going to stick to the current rules / addition I've been using so far. If I had to pick, I would have used the newest version of the Ettercap, because they gave it a pretty cool gimmick where it can kind of reel in prey using like a web line, which I think is pretty cool. For now, though, it'll be running the more melee-reliant version. I know I said the Pixie was here, which the Pixie is, but they're a coward, so don't expect the Pixie to help. Here's our troops, and also they have a little formation here for their spider hunt. They're not expecting much, which is why they're so lightly, packed in terms of their group. They don't really have many more people, which realistically they probably should. So, let's see. Unfortunately, whoever sent them doesn't know that they may be a bit underprepared for dealing with an infestation at this stage. They'd need at least, a mage or like archers or something, basically. Basically sent the, bare minimum to handle this. The knight, honestly, I'm sure, was figured to be overkill, if anything. And, getting a decent mage isn't exactly easy. They aren't common. Well, in D&D they may be, but, if you're like leader of a village or something, you're not going to come across those very often. Back to what's probably about to be a decently effective ambush. No, I've done quite a few ambushes in these, so the next one won't really include any stealth. Not the next encounter, I mean the next video. Not really an orcs style, anyway. I'll be showing things on a per round basis. The surprise round, which we're about to show here, has 2 guards killed with 1 on death's door from the wolf spider. The Ettercap manages 1 bite while its claw attacks didn't get through the knight's AC. The round after, the response wasn't terrible. The humans managed to land some hits on the spiders, managing to weaken them a little bit. And, the round after, the knight kills the giant spider next to them, and the guard kills the wolf spider, finally slaying it. The giant spiders fail to break any defenses, while the Ettercap lands another bite. And the round after that, the giant spider takes a bite out of one of the guards, leaving 1 left, while the Ettercap manages to finish off the knight after a brief little clash there. And yes, the knight did manage to parry a few attacks, but it didn't really help when all it did was increase AC for a single attack, and the Ettercap does get 3, so it did get through more often than not. Point being, this looking here is just 1 guard versus 2 much stronger opponents, so I'll save us the time and say they will not be winning. And I know there wasn't much use of the spider's web ability, but There wasn't really a point in using it since the knight and guards all had decent strength, meaning it probably wouldn't have been very effective. Now, let's see how the Ettercaps little retaliation quest goes. Like I said before, this isn't very realistic for an Ettercap to do, but it does make an interesting scenario to use our Web Garrote variant. So let's send Ettercap 47 after a noble who approved a mission that went very wrong, as we saw. So first, let's roll some stealth, which is pretty important for this, obviously. Although I'm pretty sure even if this goes south, the Ettercap may be able to escape, since it's about as fast as a regular person and can climb walls. And let's do a quick int roll to see how much info this Ettercap is working with. 16 is the roll after the negative intelligence modifier. So with the reduced intelligence, we can assume this only really means the Ettercap knows show up at night. And to be generous, let's say it knows roughly where the noble is in the manor. Not the building layout in detail, just where it would have to go when it enters to reach where the noble would be. So like the, floor, and let's say it saw the noble through a window, so it knows just about where the noble would be sleeping. And I know theoretically it could enter through if there was a window, but maybe the window doesn't open, and breaking it would probably get the attention of a lot of guards. Point being, the Ettercap can theoretically break through, strangle a guard, and strangle a baron, but it's not a baron, it's just a noble. Anyway, it could do this before a guard would arrive to help, but the problem would be then more guards would be on their way, and alerting the whole, manor while inside, and there's guards coming, would probably be a way to not last very long. Can't fight its way through all the security. And looking at what it has to deal with, a guard's passive perception is above average, which is good for their job, I guess. So they will catch it if it rolls low. And getting inside this estate, let's call it an estate, that's the easy part. With wall climbing, all the Ettercap has to do is wait for a gap in the patrols across the walls and just climb over, which wouldn't require much intelligence, since all I have to do is look up and go, okay, that guy's leaving, I can go now. And the noble may have an easy way to get to it, after all. First step would probably be get to the roof. That would be the best place to search for access. From there, maybe there's a balcony. The noble might have one connected to where they stay, but that's likely guarded, and if it has more than one guard, the Ettercap wouldn't be able to use it, since taking down one guard would just cause the other to try and get help, which would very likely cause exposure. And if the balcony was open or just had one guard, it would be pretty simple to go down, take out that guard, use the Web Garrote, and then go inside and defeat the sleeping noble. Defeat, I say. He's gonna kill him. The Ettercap would just have to stick to the ceilings to get by, at least for larger rooms specifically. Otherwise, taking out the occasional guard shouldn't be an issue. The issue is just how well guarded a noble is. In this scenario, I'll be giving Ettercap 47 a few things. I mean, some things will go its way, others will not. For example, we'll be starting on the roof, since getting up there was the easy part, or at least adjacent to it. There's 4 guards up there, which the Ettercap will have to navigate around or subdue. Their passive perception isn't enough to spot the Ettercap, especially with all the shadows. The ideal strategy is to take out the guard in front of the door, hide the body, and then go inside. And with the Ettercap's multi-attack, it should get 2 grab attempts to use its garrote around, and if it works, that would be considered a sneaky kill. If it's forced to use its bite while not using its garrote, that would be considered loud and give itself away. Or it can bite someone while they're grappled by the garrote, and that would be considered stealth. And since a round in D&D is considered 6 seconds, the Ettercap should have plenty of time to grab a guard and bite them or move them once they're down without anyone noticing. So, let's see. The with a clean garrote and bite, the guard doesn't get a chance to alert the others. Not that they could have said anything with the garrote wrapped around their neck. This gives an easy opportunity for the Ettercap to sneak in, after moving the guard, that is, and with a 14 strength, that shouldn't be too bad. Even if the door is locked, the guard would likely have the key, which would let the Ettercap in. For this area, we're going to re-roll stealth for the Ettercap. Luckily, it rolled pretty high, so it keeps its stealth. Next area will require some luck and a bit of stealth for some rolls. So, the first thing to do is obviously go around the corner and take out that guard. Which is accomplished by another garrote/bite combo. And to approach that guard in the large hall, the best choice would be the Ettercap should climb to the ceiling and attack from above. And considering it should have plenty of webs, theoretically it could just lengthen its garrote till it could wrap around the neck from the ceiling. But that would be a bit riskier for the guard escaping and trying to tell someone else. The best course is to lower itself and perform a bite and garrote combo like usual. It could try hiding the guard on the ceiling, which may be useful, but that would require a few rolls to make it work, and to make it actually hidden. But it would require some just to get it past the hallway where there is also a guard, so let's just do a quick stealth roll, and a strength roll, and a use of web, which is a small price to pay for hiding this guard up there. So first, though, we gotta see if it actually manages to land this attack. And the combo succeeds again. Now for the hiding part, a strength roll will decide if the Ettercap manages to move this guard up the wall with just one arm. And it does. And for securing it, we're going to roll stealth to see how hidden this will be at the, advantage it has, since the ceiling is already very shadowed, especially at night, and it's pretty high. That will be doing most of the heavy lifting. Metaphorically, I mean. The Ettercap was the only one doing any actual lifting. 16 is good enough to keep this hidden due to a guard's, decent passive perception, but isn't high enough to spot that. Now the question is where the Ettercap should be headed now. It knows the noble's general direction, but not the exact route to it from the inside. And going down, at least from map perspective down, is the correct direction, but which hallway is a bit less clear. There is a right way, which I know of, but I'd be rolling to see if it picks correctly. Which, bad news, it didn't. Good thing is that adapting this to work is still very possible. The Ettercap may just need to double back a bit later. And it can't use its high ceiling to go down this smaller hallway and not be spotted, so it will instead have to rush the guard, which is risky, but it should be fast enough to pull it off, and fast enough to make sure it doesn't get a word out, since the hallway is less than 30 feet it would have to navigate once it goes to the corner. And let's see. Okay, never mind. I apologize for doubting it. That's a 21 and a crit on the garrote too. With that, the bite added on is a bit overkill, honestly. I can imagine the image of an Ettercap running from behind a corner and strangling you is pretty startling. Okay, maybe more accurately terrifying. There is one issue, however. That guard was not out of sight of anyone. This one was hidden around the corner. I know the others were shown to you earlier, but this is a surprise that is a part of the developments from picking this wrong hallway. The guard isn't surprised, since obviously the surprise round would be the Ettercap sprinting around the corner. So the guard will take its opportunity to run to the end of the hallway, and from what the Ettercap can tell, it will hear the guard bang on the door and start shouting something in common, which it cannot understand, so let's roll a very easy perception check to see if the guard in the other hall hears this, which they do and move to help, coming to just the corner of the hallway, meaning they can just about see around and see what's going on. Anyway, that guard, after saying something through that door, will move back to confront the intruder. This action puts the Ettercap on a bit of a time limit, since it would not take too long now for the rest of the guards to be notified. And the Ettercap could use its garrote in this fight, though without its stealth advantage, it could be slightly riskier. Luckily, the Ettercap's bonus to hit is still more than enough to deal with this, guard's armor, at least on good rolls, which allows for an easy bite and garrote to follow up to finish that guard quickly. This does give our unlucky guard, who just found out what's happening, the chance to fight off the intruder. Or it would, if they didn't just witness a very quick death at the hand of them. This guard now instead will go to help the noble, or more accurately, wake him up, tell him to get moving. The Ettercap will stop and instead pursue this other loose end. And the Ettercap, being just as fast, will keep good pace, so next round will be a part of this chase here. So we'll follow the Ettercap, we'll follow the Ettercap inside this room the guard went, where we see a noble who's very suddenly awakened by a guard shouting about a large spider thing. Which does mean this noble is also very unarmed if they were just asleep. The guard was ready, though, and it does manage to stab the Ettercap right when it does enter. The guard did roll minimum damage, though, so it's barely even a wound, which the Ettercap responds to quickly. And surprisingly, the guard actually manages to defend from every one of the Ettercap's attacks, which first one to do so that far. This guy definitely deserves a promotion if they live. Or this one, the guard deserves to be promoted. I mean, it's the first one to actually live. The noble starts shouting something at the guard, which I doubt helps, probably more distracting than anything. The guard will attack regardless, hitting again. This guard's great. Love this guy. Puts up a real fight. I wish sparing this guard was an option, but, gotta take out them and the noble. The Ettercap does attack again and kills the cool guard. That's unfortunate. Noble is probably finished now. The noble will attempt to nobly flee for their life, which lets the Ettercap use an opportunity attack, which does hit, stopping the noble fleeing with its garrote. The Ettercap swiftly follows up with a bite that finishes the noble off. Well done, Ettercap 47. Extract from the mission area. Which will be difficult, since now the Ettercap needs to flee, and very quickly. The Ettercap moves out into the hall, where now there are some guards and a guard captain, which is going to, attack the Ettercap, try to save the noble, which they don't know. It's a bit late to do that. And while I didn't give too much detail about this hallway, this large area is lined with windows, which the Ettercap will break and climb to escape through. This should get the Ettercap to escape, not quietly, but without getting stopped. Maybe a few wounds, but nothing out there should be able to permanently stop them. Also, this is a side note, I think it's crazy that a guard captain is so much stronger than a knight. Now, ending this last encounter, there's a small bump in what was otherwise a successful assassination, at least by an Ettercap's standards anyways, which I imagine is a very low and possibly non-existent bar. That will wrap up our little rundown of Ettercaps and what exactly they do. Next video will be about orcs, specifically the same thing we did with the Duragar 2 videos ago, about, basically a group of orcs, which will be using a lot of the varieties that they have. And I understand with the more recent rules, orcs are more of a race than just something you put as a enemy thing, but I think it'll be cool to go over the different varieties of orcs anyway. And also, the next video of this kind, we should be going over constructs. I will be showing which constructs specifically. We're going to be going over golems. Next video like this. And that will wrap up for this video of Dungeon Scrap. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, subscribe, like, the usual. And I'll hopefully see you next time.